On the Wire, in association with Ladbrokes.
Yeah, it's that time of the year again. It's the Dublin Racing Festival. The festival still relatively early in its inception that has completely taken off, and it is on the wire here in association with Ladbrokes. We've great guests on the show today. We're going to hear a 4-minute interview with Paul Townend about his kind of favourite, I suppose, memories and also what he's looking forward to. It's Fast or Slow 2. Gallopin des Champs 0, but the bookies, including Ladbrokes, think it'll be 2-1 come the weekend. Are they right? Are they wrong? It's time for On the Wire. Yeah, I did mention our sponsor, Ladbrokes, and Nicola McGeady. Actually, she did catch up with Paul Townend. We'll hear that interview shortly. And yeah, before we do hear it, Nicola, he's in good form, you'd have to say, not only in terms of his winners of late, but also going into the weekend.
Well, why wouldn't he be when he has the pick of so many amazing horses? Like, he literally has the most envious book of rides over the weekend. So yeah, he was in great form to chat to when I caught up with him during the week at Leopardstown. So yeah, hopefully everyone will get some snippets from that interview.
Yeah, Mark Boylan, he is like the guy at the bar who's literally mobbed by would-be suitors, just has to pick.
Yeah, I've never known what that's like, Johnny. It must be nice.
Neither have I.
Yeah,
we'll get to Donn in a moment.
From experience, but yeah, look, Paul is. I think the two guys, Paul and Jack, at the minute, they're both of them. It's setting up to be a really, really fascinating few months in the Jockeys Championship. They're bringing out the best in each other. To be doing that this early in the season, yeah, it's very exciting. And huge weekend. What a book of rides he has to look forward to, Paul.
Just on that, Don, it was fascinating. I think Jack might have gone 19 clear, had a run of like 7 wins out of 8 or something like that, and then sort of Paul rallied. I think the expectation is that Paul will have the ammunition to go over him, but it was interesting that there was a horse Ian Donoghue had running in down Royal, where basically Keith Donoghue seemingly almost gave up the ride to help kind of Jack on his quest. So we're going to have a bit of fun with this.
It's brilliant that it's developing into this matchup. You kind of, Anyway, I'm always kind of reluctant to talk about Jack Kennedy in the context of a championship because he's had such bad luck over the last few years. But now he's getting a run at it. He's going to reach his 100th winner, please God. And he's 12 clear now. But Paul Townend, his last 20 rides, he's won on 14 of them. It's quite incredible, including 2 at Cheltenham, which don't count in the Irish Championship. But that's a 70% strike rate. And yeah, going into the weekend, it's going to be really interesting to have a chat about it because even though Willie Mullins is dominant, it can't have been easy for Paul Townend choosing between them. There are a few difficult choices that he had, as we saw last year. It's not that straightforward, but no, it's a hell of a weekend ahead.
Yeah, I think that the chances are Paul will be on one, will probably get it wrong on one of them because some of the novices are very, very good. And, if you look at what the betting with Ladbrokes this weekend, you'll get exalted odds on horses that are very, very promising for Willie Mullins' yard. And Nicola, what sort of offers are we talking about here? Because this is a weekend that I have to say isn't the easiest for punters. We've a fair few odds on shots and the odd difficult handicap kind of thrown in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I imagine punters will be getting involved with multis because there's so many short priced favorites, but then you have some tricky races. Even the very first one at 120, the novice hurdle, is going to be tricky, but we'll be running a matched free bet up to €5 at Leopardstown, so anyone who wants to have a fun flutter can do that. We also have the Ladbrokes Live Tourbus on site, which will be giving away tickets to the Europa League final. So if you are at the Dublin Racing Festival, you won't miss this massive tourbus. Could be Liverpool in the Europa League final as well. It
could be Klopp's last game. I was in Liverpool the week. I was in Liverpool over the week, and it's basically like half the people over there seem to be Irish, and everyone seems to be going to this Europa League Cup final.
Yeah, exactly. Well, tickets will be really hard to get, so come over and play and have a chance to win tickets. The tourbus, you won't miss it. It was actually the tourbus that was used in the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, so a little bit of film knowledge there as well for it.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's get to the Gold Cup, which is 3:35, a race with only 4 runners, but an absolute race to savour. I'll actually stick with you, Nicola, in terms of the betting for this, because as I mentioned at the start of the show, we have a 2-0 deficit for Gallopin des Champs to kind of overcome. But he was sensational at Christmas. And not only that, Capodanno, who was beaten the guts of 25 links, goes on and wins at Cheltenham readily at the weekend.
Yeah, betting here is completely dominated by Gallopin des Champs, another short price favourite at 4-11. He obviously beat Confladen and Iron Maximus at Christmas, but Fast or Slow was a non-runner that day, so it will be interesting here. And of course, Fast or Slow is going to be the biggest threat. As you said, he beat Gallopin des Champs in the last twice they've met, so Fast or Slow is priced at 3-1, but I really do think revenge will be on the cards for Gallopin, who of course is just even money right now for the Gold Cup at Cheltenham.
Yeah, we might ask Adam, our producer, to show this footage again because, and if you are watching this live, by all means, send a comment in. Don, I can't get over this because if you look at Jerry Colomb on the left, fair enough, he's not necessarily proven himself as a 100% Gold Cup contender. But Jack Kennedy said after race, and I'm pretty much paraphrasing here, but he said we were happy with the run. There were no excuses.
It was quite incredible. Like it was a really special performance, Johnny. I actually watched this race from the stands. And as you're looking down the home straight from the stand, you can't really tell by how far clear Galopin Des Champs is on the run to the last. You can just see his head. But then I kind of thought he was maybe 3 or 4 lengths clear. Then he jumps the last, and then you're waiting for Jerry Colomb to jump, and it took him a while. But no, what he did there and the atmosphere, you can see Paul Townend, what it meant to him. He really got a great kick out of it, which is great to see. Like it created a real buzz around Leopardstown on the day. And look, Galopin Des Champs, it was a sensational performance. He's the Gold Cup winner from last season. He probably, it was good to see him doing something like that because he was beaten in the Punchestown Gold Cup. He was beaten in the John Durkan Chase. So you're kind of, there was that train of thought developing where, maybe he was never going to be the same again after having a hard race in the Gold Cup. But that put that theory to bed. And yeah, look, it was a really special performance. But
are the odds fair?
Yeah, the odds fair. Yeah, I'd have Fast or Slow closer to him in the betting. As you said, it's 2-1 to Fast or Slow.
Sorry, you did beat him last year. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, last year. But since Punchestown, since April, Fast or Slow has been I still think he's slightly underrated. I think he hasn't probably fully got the credit that he deserved. And Martin Brasel and Sean Bernardine were trying to take him out of the Savills chase. It was a big shout, but they might just start to reap the rewards of that decision now.
Here he is, Mark, winning on his seasonal return. Stylish ride by JJ Slevin, who had a fascinating interview with actually Patrick Mullins in the Racing Post over the weekend. And, this is over a trip short of both of his best and that of Galopin Des Champs.
Yeah, I think the trip was a big factor in Galopin here. He never took a cut at his fences either. I was disappointed when he is horse that stays further. They weren't more aggressive on him this day. But, there was a serious turnaround. It was an amazing turnaround, really, from the John Durkan to the Savills. And, you'd wonder whether Willie had to tighten the bolts a little bit more than he might have expected that early in the season, I suppose. I wasn't so sure we would see Galopin Des Champs here this weekend. I thought they might go straight there. But having said that, it's his for the taking. How can you leave an Irish Gold Cup behind you? I don't anticipate any upsets. The only thing I would say, I think Conflated shouldn't be probably 3 or 4 times the price of Fast or Slow. He's at least proven in the grade that we know he can turn up in an Irish Gold Cup, can turn up in a Savills and run big. As I mentioned in the show last week with that angle with horses who raced down the inside rail at Leopardstown over Christmas when it turned testing, he was one of them and he ran well for a long, long way in the Savills. Obviously not in the same league as Galopin Des Champs, but who is. Fast or Slow, I feel he's caught Galopin Des Champs on 2 days where we haven't seen peak Galopin Des Champs by any means. And I just thought if there's a betting without angle, and I was to get that sort of gap between Fast or Slow and Conflated, I'd nearly be tempted to even go with Conflated.
Yeah, well, there's plenty to take in there. So I think going to the head, I'd probably go 3-1 Fast or Slow because I'd be with Don. I still think this horse is actually improving. JJ Slevin was on a podcast with us last night for Off the Ball where he basically said, we're not like, it's not all about the Gold Cup this year. This is a Leopardstown Grade 1 that we want to win. He's trained by genius and Martin Brasel. And as well as that, I think he will, and JJ implied he will come on from his season return. Interesting enough, just very briefly as well, Don, Gentleman's Game could have come here, but Mouse Morris thinks the gap between here and the Gold Cup is actually a little bit shorter than he'd want ideally if he had a hard race, and he's a horse that's been slightly tricky to train. And Willie Mullins is campaigning of Galopin Des Champs this season. This is his 4th one already.
Yeah, it's quite
4th one since April.
Willie-esque, isn't it? Like to come here, because like Mark, I kind of wouldn't have been surprised if he'd skipped this because he won well at Christmas, but he had to have had a hard race. You don't put up a performance like that and not have a hard race. I agree with Mark as well on Conflated. We saw that down the inside at Leopardstown, it probably wasn't the place to be. And Capadonna proved there the other day at Leopardstown or at Cheltenham that he came on from that run. So Conflated, and he loves Leopardstown. The ground is going to be better than it was that day. It won't be a negative going down the inside. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him stepping forward. But I just think Fast or Slow is not getting the credit that he deserves. He ran the handicap at Cheltenham last season, but it was in the ultimate. He was beaten in the neck by Korak Rambler, who went and won the Grand National doing handsprings afterwards. So he won the Durkan Chase. And again, in the John Durkan Chase this season, I thought it was too sharp for him. I thought, he'd need to be going out and trip. And it's the same for Galopin Des Champs, obviously a Cheltenham Gold Cup winner. But yeah, and he comes in here fresher than Galopin Des Champs. I can see him putting it up to him.
Okay, Nicola's going to give us exclusive Ladbrokes betting on her favourite child, and this will all be revealed at what I'm talking about here, because she did speak to Paul Townend in a lovely place last week.
Hopefully a lot of success. Big weekend, a lot of grade ones, a lot of prize money, a lot of big names. The start of the clashes, and it's definitely a festival that stands on its own. When horses win at Christmas time, they don't automatically look to Cheltenham. Now they look for Dublin Racing Festival first.
Paul, you've had a lot of great moments. I'm sure you're starting to lose count, but what's been your greatest moment at this meeting?
I think Faheen winning the Novice Chase a couple of years ago, just the excitement afterwards, and he was a people's favourite, and you know they ran for a place at the winners' enclosure to see him. The noise, the excitement, it was lovely to be a part of.
Yeah, I remember that. It was just mental. It's definitely got to be up there with terms of like one of the well receptions you've received.
Definitely. Robbie Power was bearing down on us, an easy game going to the line. Thankfully, the line came in time.
Which is the one ride that is exciting you the most this weekend? You've got a lot, but what stands out?
Oh, it's like you trying to pick your favourite child, Nicola.
Don't do that to me.
You're doing it to me. The big names, your Galloping the Champs, State Man's a favourite of mine. El Fabiolo's the exciting 2-miler. And then you've a whole host of the novices, so I can't single one out, to be honest. But I'm a very, very lucky boy to have a lot of big names turning up this weekend.
Do you have a number of winners in your head you'd be happy to come away from the Dublin Racing Festival with?
No, I don't try and put numbers on it. I'll try and write as many as I can, try and get a few more of the decisions right. Got a few wrong here last year. So yeah, just take it race by race.
So say when the big names were beaten, but then State Man win, Galloping Champ loses. Do you come away feeling a bit gutted, or are you just still happy you had a big win?
I suppose last year is a prime example of that. I walked out of here after picking the wrong horse in a lot of the races. Things hadn't gone right with Facile Vega, Lossy Mouth. But State Man had won, Galloping the Champs had won, and I'd won a big handicap on Gaelic Warrior. So I had to have a little reality check and go, you didn't do too bad. You won the Champion Hurdle, Gold Cup, and a big handicap. So, you need to have a little reality check now and again.
It can be good for the ego as well, Paul, just to be taken down a little bit.
It has to be done in the right way by the right people. But that was it. I had a brilliant festival here last year, and I still got a lot of them wrong. So it's never nice to pick the wrong one.
And it's hard when you have so much to pick from as well. So I don't envy you. Is Salvador Mundi as exciting a prospect as everyone seems to think?
With going through a line of Sergino, he's obviously going to be late coming out on the track. But yeah, he's an exciting horse. I haven't sat in him a whole lot at home, to tell you the truth. The juveniles I find hard to judge this time of year. Hence why I get it wrong more times than I get it right in them. But the line of form through Sergino looks very strong.
Talking about the Irish Gold Cup, what are the dangers to Galloping the Champ? Obviously, we've got faster, so he's coming back again. Haven't beaten you twice, but is that the main threat for you?
It looks to be. He's beat us the last twice. We haven't been beaten far by him, and I think we got back on track here at Christmas is probably a way of putting it. So it'll be a huge clash, and Faster Slow probably hasn't been getting the respect he deserved after beating us. Probably at the Punchestown Festival, but he's getting it since he beat us in the Durkin. So it'll be a huge clash, but I won't swap Galloping.
And if you could ride just one horse from another stable at the Dublin Racing Festival, what would it be?
Marine National probably stands out a little bit. Just the way he took to chasing. I've seen his tail plenty last year. He's a high level of form, so yeah, he's an exciting one from a different stable, but we'll try and beat him this weekend.
So that was Paul Townend, and this being basically a live recording of this show. So we're sort of 10:46 on a Friday morning. Declarations have come in for the Ladbrokes Novice Chase on the Sunday. American Mike, Fact to File, Found a 50, Gaelic Warrior, who will be ridden by Paul Townend, and Grange Clear West. And this is one of those races where Paul had to make a choice. The interview itself, Nicola, he's very relaxed, very humble guy. Paul he's never apt to kind of praise himself. And I guess reflecting on that inner turmoil of jockeys as well, where you will have things will obviously go wrong on big days.
Yeah, I mean, he said it himself, he doesn't always get it right, and that can be, that hurts him as well. But, he's a humble guy, and he says, he said to me, it's good for his ego, keeps him grounded if he doesn't get them all right as well.
What do you make of him, Mark?
Actually, he's super cool. I think he's taken his game to another level without being a boisterous character as the number one rider. He goes about it his own way, but I think he has really stepped up to the role. Even in the last 2 seasons, I can see improvement in him. This is the thing with riders. I often think, when guys are good young, and Paul is still a young man, but, it's not, we didn't see the best of Ryan Moore 10 years ago. We didn't get to see the very best of some of those guys that have made the top at that stage. When Paul has been so good from so young, you never know where the season will be. I just think his coolness, he's on the best horse inevitably a lot of the time, but his coolness and judgment, that's what sets him apart for me. He's excellent to watch over a fence as well. You rarely see him ask him one for a silly one. A joy to watch, really.
Just as well, Don, he was talking about the buzz he got from Faugheen and the difference a crowd and atmosphere makes at these meetings. I think it's quite unquantifiable. And you were obviously saying you watched Galloping from the stands the last day. It helps when people get energized by it all.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a hell of an occasion. And Paul Townend, as I said there to Nicola, he got a few decisions wrong last year, but he never seems to be fazed by that. And I know he's in the prime job now, but he's been deputy for that prime job for a long time, and he proved even when Ruby was out that he was well able to. Remember, he rode Hurricane Fly in the Royal Bond Hurdle as a youngster. I think Ruby was out with his spleen that time, and it was his first Grade 1 ride. And he just, even from that day, and Willie Mullins has always said when Ruby's out, he was always, he never had any doubts in his ability, and Paul Townend's confidence, it never seems to be eroded. Like he's had a few, remember that at Punchestown famously when Albin Photo ran out and he came back the next day, I think he rode a treble the next day. He's just unflappable. And last season, if the rider gave Galloping the Shot in the Gold Cup, phenomenal on the biggest stage, and it would have been ride of the year except for Aya Maximus in the Irish Grand National, which was even better. He's just especially when you're in that position and riding the best horses in lots of the best races, you want that, as Mark said, that kind of coolness, unflappability, and he has all of that now. He's deadly.
Yeah, and I mentioned the interview with JJ Slevin in the Racing Post. It was a nice interview with Michael O'Sullivan as well, who's going to ride the Marine Nationale. I go to you, Mark. This is what are we? The Irish Archer 225. This is the horse I'm actually most looking forward to running the entire weekend. Utterly blown away by his performance on his chase debut and different ground into the bargain in this Grade 1.
Yeah, me too, Johnny. He was really, really brilliant over Christmas. And another factor in it as well, from a time perspective, I thought watching the Grade 1 half an hour later, won by Dino Blue, I thought visually looking at the Gentleman to Me was doing his thing, going hard in front. When you actually look at the section of times, this guy through the first 1.5 miles, 1.5 has gone quicker than the Gentleman to Me, and he's still been quicker through the last half mile as well. It was on the clock. It was proper. The way he's putting away, I know Firm Footings isn't absolutely top drawer, but you'd love how he stretched. They felt he was going to come on for the run.
That is a proper insight, Mark, because I have to admit, I laid him on the day thinking the ground was against him, and I was very happy for the first half mile.
Yeah, no, I couldn't argue with you. He just has so much class, and I think he's versatile as well. They can go out and go on answers from the front if they want to. They can do what they did in the Supreme last year and be cool and call on a run late. But it'll be interesting one tactically with such a strong Mullins presence around him as to how they played this race. They did try and ruffle his feathers a little bit last time, but cool rider, cool horse. I can't see him beaten, and I think he's one of those for me. If you were looking for your multiples, I just can't look aside from him. I do think Facile Vega last time, maybe there were other reasons for it, but I felt the way the race unfolded, where Found a 50 is consistently jumping out to his right, And for so long, it felt like Facile Vega was being impeded fence after fence after fence. I would love to see him either go on out in front of him. You know, if you're in a motorway and 3 lanes, the guy in the middle keeps coming out to you. You know, you're eventually going to switch course. But I felt he took a lot of heat to horses for that, and he is a keen horse. He's not easy, I'm sure, in a lot of ways too. So I'm not trying to be overly hard, but I just don't think the race you got to see the best of him. But when we saw these two horses, you know, go toe to toe in March, Marine Nationale was the best of them, and I still think that's going to be the way over fences, given how Marine Nationale has taken the jumping.
Yeah, we'll actually look at some VT from that race at Leopardstown, and you know, often the case here is the victor doesn't actually get that much of the credit, because it was all about the 1-2 shot that was beaten, in the sense of Facile Vega. Not for the first time, maybe a small bit disappointing. This performance, Don, it did raise question marks.
Yeah, I guess like it's interesting that Facile Vega is a shorter price than Found 50 now, even though he's been beaten over 6 lengths by him.
We're being very favourable to Mir. We're actually showing him winning previously over fences, but here we go.
In the pocket here, yeah. No, that was a good performance. Like in the pocket, obviously very pity that he's out for the season. That was a really good performance. He had Spillan's Tower back behind him in 4th place that day as well. And Spillan's Tower has come on and enhanced that for him since. So look, he's a very, very good horse. I agree with Mark. He didn't have the run of the race the last day. It was a kind of a messy race, and Found 50 was jumping to his right, annoying him. And even so, he still got to the front and looked a likely winner before he actually ended up finishing 4th of 4 in the end. So you give him another chance. Found 50 is a good horse. Maybe another horse that probably didn't get due recognition for that win the last day, because the headlines were all about Facile Vega's defeat. But no, Marine Nationale, he's just brilliant. Like Barry Connell said before his chasing bow, that his schooling over fences was as good as he could have hoped for, that he could be a better chaser than hurdler, and what he did that day. And as Mark said, the time of the race was faster than Dyna Blue, and Gentleman de May set a good pace. So that was, it wasn't down to the pace, a lack of pace in the Grade 1 race that hurt the time. It was Marine Nationale was so good, and as you saw there in the VT, he probably could have gone a whole lot faster than he did in the end. So he's just such an exciting horse. You're kind of, you're wanting him to go and do the things that he's capable of doing. You want to see these top class horses going ahead. It was fairly intriguing during the week when he said that Gaelic Warrior could take him on.
I was going to ask you about that. What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, that I'd have been with Marine Nationale even against Gaelic Warrior, especially going left-handed. We're not going to get to see that, which is a shame. But look, he's got Facile Vega and Found 50. They're very, very good horses to take on. Even Neil Eteton, like he was good at Thurles. His jumping was good, and he was a very, very high class novice hurdler last season. But if Marine Nationale, even a similar performance to the performance that he put up in his beginner's chase, that could even be good enough to win.
What are the odds, Nicola? I think the lads have explained it very well here. I don't see any negative in this lad, and I also thought the way he was ridden, perhaps a little bit more by accident than design, the way the race panned out, Michael Sullivan, meant that this lad can be ridden anyway, really.
Yeah, Marine Nationale will be very tough to beat. That's reflected in the prices. 2 to 5 will be very popular in the multis on the day. But interestingly, there has been money for Facile Vega throughout the week. He's in there at 7 to 2. As we know, he hasn't had as many big days as they would have liked. Marine Nationale beat him in the Supreme, but talking to Paul Townend, he said he hasn't lost the faith yet, but I won't be looking past the favourite here. Although we should mention Found 50, he shouldn't be forgotten here, and he's in there at 8 to 1.
Yeah, Facile Vega has been favoured every time he's run. He's been sent off odds on 9 times, and he was available at 12, 14 to 1, I think, during the week. With the sort of news that Gaelic Warrior might run, probably going to go off closer to 4 to 1 on the day. The juvenile hurdle at 150, possibly the most thought-provoking race of the day, Mark, in some respects. There are so many proper potential Triumph hurdle winners here. Nicola, actually, I must throw this in at you. Nice little bit of prep there on the horse that was behind Sergino's. You're doing your homework for the interview with him there.
Yeah, I always do my homework. Why are you surprised, Johnny?
Well, it was like, I think, was he 2025 for the Triumph? We haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, well, Mark, we're obviously not going to see the Mullins horse, but he has plenty in the race, including Storm Heart. Very interestingly bred horse, this fella as well, for Jigginstown. And the form the last day has actually been nicely endorsed by the third during the week as well. When the handicap, this lad looks sensational.
He looks very good, Johnny, but I just struggle at this time of year to, especially when we're dealing with a lot of horses here who've just had one run in Ireland over hurdles. I find it difficult to be really emphatic that one is this far clear of the rest, and this was really impressive. But Paul Townend even alluded to himself in the interview that getting a handle on these juveniles this early in the year is not straightforward. I think Willie has a really strong hand here, obviously, And I really like Carjess at Christmas. I love that run behind Cala Conti. I expect Carjess to turn it around with her this time. For all the Cala Conti is still going the right way. But even there's horses there like Majborough, who when we were down for a stable tour earlier in the year, he was one of the juveniles that got really, really favourable, I suppose, mention from Willie to the press that morning. There's a lot of horses here who have had one win, one run. High Wind is another there, Bunting. There's so many here. Ethical Diamond, Willie had said coming into the season, he felt that was going to be his best juvenile. So I think for Paul, of all the calls he has to make this weekend, this is the hardest one. And I think the market has priced it up as if Storm Heart is absolutely away and gone as the best of these. I doubt they have a proper handle on which is the best. I'm sure they have a good gauge, but I mean, if you said which of these are you most certain of, I think this is the grade one that he'll have had most headaches over trying to decide, I'd imagine, because there is such a chance for these juveniles to improve at different rates. For me, if there was market positivity with Majborough on his first start for Willie, having come from France with a big reputation, he's the one I'd be very interested in. But Carjess is the one that I can see definitely improvement. She's so keen, so hard on herself. I thought it was a massive run on the circumstances last time. And I know Sergino sets a huge standard in this division, Johnny, but like in terms of Irish horses, I wouldn't be shocked if we had a serious bullet to come out of this race and fire at the Triumph. You know, the first 10 home in the Triumph last year were all trained in Ireland. The Boodles, we had the first, second, third, fourth, sixth, seventh. You know, I think there is definitely depth to come here if we're able to have acting like a crop we had last season.
Brilliantly put, Mark. And Don, you could actually fancy any of the 6 Willie Mullins runners alone. You know, Mark mentioned Ethical Diamond. I completely forgive this horse to last. He was sent off 6-5 in a 19-runner race. Ground was unraceable, having achieved a race most rating of 96 from winning at Limerick on yielding ground for a smaller yard switch Willie Mullins. Where do you start here?
Yeah, it's a hell of a race. It's a hell of a race. And there's so little evidence to go on. Like, Paul Townend can only ride one horse in the race. Good rider though he is, he can still only ride one of them. And, you know, the market does tend to, and, you know, Marchborough, he's Mark Walsh's ride. So the market does tend to react. And we don't know the degree to which Storm Heart was above the others in Paul Townend's mind. We only get the answer that he's riding him. We don't know by how much he favours him. And I, you know, fully agree with Mark on Carjess. I think we have a wee bit of VT on it, but she was very good the last day. That was her first run as well. Look, Cala Conti, she did well when Nürburgring beat her at Ferryhouse in the Grade 3 race. Yeah, like we picked this up here. Like Cala Conti, she's done well because she's been up there handy from early. Carjess, we didn't see her through the early part of the race. She's just so keen through the early part of the race. She's done really, really well to be still there and battle on as well as she did. She just holds on for the runner-up spot from Nürburgring, he's run a big race as well, and you can see how far the 3 of them are clear. But Cala Conti, like, she took a nice step forward in that race from her run at the Hatton's Grace Hurdle meeting at Ferryhouse, and she did it well. She was strong. There was a lot to like about that performance. But Carjess, that was her first run in Ireland. It was her first run since last May, first run for Willie Mullins. So, and the fact that she was keen early on, so all of that you'd expect that Carjess will step forward at least a little bit from that run. And yeah, I can see her being backed and being a wee bit shorter than she is. But it's a really strong race. It historically is. It's a very, very good pointer to the Triumph Hurdle as well. And it's not just the winners who can go on and win a Triumph Hurdle. The beaten horses can do that too. We know that. And yeah, look, Sergina looked brilliant the other day. But the Irish juveniles, they look very, very strong. And there's a strong pool of them for all that. We don't have a huge amount of evidence. But this race, it's an intriguing race. I'm dying to see this race pan out to see who comes out on top. Yeah,
and the horse that Nicola mentioned who was behind Sergino at O'Toy was Salvador Mundi. And of course, the Donnellys now have both of them. But as Don says, this, Nicola, is kind of a very good Triumph Hurdle trial. I actually think it's a very good Fred Winter trial as well, because I think a lot of these horses will emerge with huge credit. And when we talked about a preview nights when they also ran here with a view to the handicap.
Yeah. This is a really tough race. And I know what you said, Paul, when he was talking to me, he said it was the hardest decision. You're right, Mark, that he had to make over the 2 days. With Mullins having 6 others in the race, but I do think he deserves to be favourite. We have him in there, Johnny, at 6-4. He was really impressive when he won his maiden. You would perhaps question his experience compared to some of the others. As you said, we just seen Cala Conti and Carjess at Christmas. There was very little between them, 6 and 7-1 respectively. The horse I actually really like in this race is High Wind, and I've put that up as my each way nap of the day. I thought he was really good when winning a maiden under Sean O'Keefe at Punchestown. He did make a bad mistake at the last, but he recovered well, and I think he can sharpen that up. And I think at 10-1 he represents a little bit of value. But the buzz horse in this race, the one that's coming for money the last couple of days, is Madgeborough, and it's 5-1 right now. But that seems to be gathering a lot of momentum in the betting and could go off a good bit shorter.
Yeah, Willie running 6 in it. All of them very, very promising. We'll have a look briefly now at the handicap hurdle, which is at the 3 o'clock. A couple of horses here. Panda Boy is obviously one we're going to give a mention to. He's one of the JJ11 Martin Brassel access, who could be quite well in terms of his chase win. And he's obviously an interesting runner, Don. For all that, I'd always be wary of these horses going off lower hurdles marks just based on the fact that it doesn't work out a lot of the time.
Yeah, look, he's what is he, £9 lower over hurdles, so it's an interesting project for Martin Brassel. It's a good spot. Interesting to see him over hurdles. We know that he goes really well at Leopardstown. He does like the track, but I kind of find that unless there's a reason for it, the market does tend to factor that in. The fact that he is well in over hurdles compared to his chase mark, but look, they work out in different ways. But in my view, there's a reason why horses have different marks over hurdles and over fences. This is
red hat here.
The Paddy Park Chase at the Christmas Festival and Meeting of the Waters has run out a really impressive winner, but he's stayed on well, and it's a race in which he's run well in the past as well. He finished third in the race last year. He's just unlucky to bump into one, so it was a really good run on soft ground. The ground will probably be a wee bit better than it was then, but he's a really talented horse, and he's a player in the race as well. But it's a deep race. Like Fine Margin was so good at Haydock the last day. And then there are others. I know a couple of people fancy horses in the race further down Canal End and Nine Graces as well. But yeah, it's a deep race.
Yeah, we look very briefly at Fine Margin here. I have to say this was one of the most bizarre betting markets I've seen in a long time, because Fine Margin was making the switch to the Willie Mullins yard, was sent off 22-1 despite the stable switch. Usually it goes completely the other way. Took on an Emma Mullins trained horse, was actually quite ill-fated. Slate Lane got injured after the race. Slate Lane went off favourite. And as Don says, Mark, I mean, he didn't win, but he did everything bar win Fine Margin here.
Yeah, I couldn't get over the market either, Johnny. It was a point I was going to make on this horse. It was completely the opposite of what I would have expected. But clearly has ability, looks to be going the right way. And I think in these type of handicaps, that's what you need necessarily. You're going to. It is competitive. I like Panda Boy too, but I do think ground-wise, we didn't see the best of him at Christmas. I think he is a horse that excels when he gets a little bit of better ground. That's going to play to his strengths. But for me, Canal End is the one, Johnny. I had him in my notebook from a long way out for this race. He was really well backed when he was disappointing to an extent at Navan last time, but I was there on the day at Navan, Johnny, and it's as windy at a race course as I've ever been. I remember we opened the press room door and the panels of the ceiling started to rattle. They were bypassing hurdles on the day. It was a day when to be handy was the right way to be. For this horse, I'm a little bit forgiving. I think there's such strong market support behind him on the day too, that you have to say that a lot of the time, even if it isn't right on that one day, I think with these type of connections, inevitably it will be right at some stage that he is well handicapped. And I thought there were positives to take from their own in the circumstance. We saw him winning there at Fairyhouse last season. That was a nice performance too. I'd just be disappointed if he isn't better than his mark. And this weekend as well for JP McManus, I think the team of the last 3 Dublin Racing Festivals for me is just how dangerous he is in these handicaps. Last season we saw Ballybourne Belter, Percival Galway. I think in this race, he's won with a Wave of the Sea in Birchdale a year earlier. Again, a Wave of the Sea, dropped the anchor, off you go. Has won 3 times in this meeting. The handicaps are a real angle where I think, for JP, he has some really interesting horses to run this weekend. And Canale, I think the other horse he runs the race, Parky Kings down the bottom, is interesting too. Conor Stone Walsh claiming off him. He has nothing on his back, but just Canale, I think, is the one that could really be better than his mark.
Yeah, we're going to go to the naps now, and I won't go back to Mark, because Mark and I have the same nap here, Canal, and I thought he ran very well at Navan the last day. Very testing ground, and as Mark said, it was really windy, lacked a bit of experience stepping up to 3 miles. It's never a certainty with a walk in the park horse at 3 miles a suit, but for me, it looked like it did on the day. Don, let's get your nap. As I mentioned, Mark and I are both going with Canal in. What's yours, Don?
Yeah, I like Nine Graces, Johnny. I think she's a progressive horse. I thought she ran really well in the Pertemps qualifier over Christmas when she kept on well. She was beaten 3 parts of a length by Gay Cool. And Gay Cool, she's got a chance in the race as well. Like, she's so progressive. She got a £6 hike. Gay Cool did. Nine Graces got a £3 hike. But I think more than that, Nine Graces she's more lightly raced than Gay Cool. I think she can progress again. I think the better ground will help her as well. Barry Connell's horses are in tremendous form. He had 2 winners there during the week. He'd Shoot the Blues ran well at Fairyhouse there on Saturday as well. And again, like Barry Conlon, we know he loves to have winners at Leopardstown and at this meeting, I suppose, in common with everybody. But 9 Graces, I just think that she's rated 128. I think she can be better than that mark. She stays well, and I can see her taking a good step forward from the last day. Like, she ran really well at Ferryhouse at the Hattons Grace Hurdle meeting on her debut this season. She shaped like a mare who would come on for that run, her seasonal debut. She did progress the last day, and I can see her progressing again.
There's a straight forecast for the 3 o'clock. Nicola, are you going to give us a tri-cast in the 3 o'clock? What's your nap?
I was really torn, actually. The 120, I was looking at Jatara, who gets a £7 mare's allowance against the lads. He's got loads of experience for Jessica Harrington's yard, and there's plenty of money actually for Jatara as well. And we're looking to lay Predators Gold. But I wanted to go for a bit of value. I've already mentioned it. I'm going to go for the Mount of Rachel Blackmore High Wind. As I said, he was really good in winning a maiden hurdle, Sean O'Keefe at Punchestown. That's the 150. So I'm going to go as High Wind as my each way now.
Lovely stuff. So we have gotten through day 1, and as I've mentioned just earlier on the show, the declarations have sort of been gradually coming in for day 2, and we have them all here. And without further ado, let us get on to day 2 of the Dublin Racing Festival. So you're very welcome back, and thanks to all of you for watching live. And there's no better place to start here than the Ladbrokes Novice Chase. As I mentioned, we didn't know what the declarations were. I was a bit fearful in this race. I'll start with you here, Mark. I was a bit fearful that, Grangeclare West, Gaelic Warrior, I thought they might be kept apart. Fact to File thrown into the mix as well for Willie Mullins. And it just goes to show the value of this festival, because, there's none of this nonsense saving horses for Cheltenham. They're running 3 very, very good novices against each other here.
Look, this is what Willie Mullins said he was going to. He didn't say Gaelic Warrior was coming here, but he's promised us all the time at the Dublin Racing Festival that he is going to run his better ones against each other. He's doing the same in the Champion Hurdle with Imperia Pass and State, man. And hats off to him here for pulling the trigger and letting 3 of them have a go here, who are, in my eyes, absolute out and out Grade 1 horses. Fact to File is the one I've really, really had so much time for. I think when you look at these horses, he's the one.
Here he is.
I think here he is. Bolting up and blowing Zanny here out of the water at Christmas. I thought it was a smashing performance. Nice step forward from when he was beaten by American Mike at Navan. I thought under more positive tactics, maybe he might even have won that day. But, you just get the impression the whole way through that this horse is the apple of Willie Mullins' eye. Even to go from bumper straight chasing. I was actually doing a piece on Willie Mullins' best Cheltenham performances of all time in the past week, and I was watching back Florida Pearl. He's one of the only ones I can remember having gone from in this type of mold, let's say, to go from champion bumper one season to Grade 1 chasing the next. So, he's this horse. I think he's got the world at his feet. Now, Gaelic Warrior is the dimension in here. It's not one I was factoring for at the start of the week, unfortunately, Johnny. But it's brilliant for the race that we have him. Going right.
Let's have a look at him. I don't know if you saw this race, Mark. There was a bit of controversy.
Was there, Johnny? I can't remember. Was there? It doesn't ring a bell.
But he does jump to the right. Look at this. As Don mentioned, he does jump to the right.
Very much so. And, you look at his 2 defeats for Willie Mullins. Both of them have come left-handed. Now, he did win here at this meeting last year in a handicap hurdle. This is very different. The only thing I would say is this chase track at Leopardstown, if they do decide to race wide, perhaps it won't be as big of an inconvenience to go jumping right as it might be otherwise. We do see sometimes, particularly over Christmas, a lot of Paul Townend's rides. He wanted to stay wide throughout. Maybe it'll be similar again here with this guy, you'd have to imagine. But I think Grangeclare West is the one that has to step up, let's say. I think what he achieved at Christmas was good. But for all that he is the Grade 1 winner, Gaelic Warriors a Grade 1 winner here too, but for all that Grangeclare West maybe has the most accomplished CV this season, I think that the other 2 are naturally more talented. I think their body of work over their career of Gaelic Warrior is stronger. But Fact to File is the one, I just think his potential is sky high. He's the one for me, but it's just fascinating. And if there is anything to catch Fact to File out, I think it'll be the zippiness, the sharpness, the enthusiasm of a Gaelic Warrior if they can keep him harnessed all going left-handed. It's just fascinating. It's the race of the weekend for me.
Yeah, no, Mark probably, we can give a mention to Miss that as well. It was the exact same profile, the same colours as Florida Pearl, who went straight from bumpers to fences. Don, you were smiling at the footage from Limerick. Kind of reminded me of when we played Astro together and I didn't chase back. I was Danny Mullins and you were Patrick.
No, I think you were the one pointing the finger at me, Johnny. Giving that to me for giving that to you.
He does jump to his right, but the argument is this is not Cheltenham, it's Leopardstown, and there is a bit of a difference.
That's exactly it. Exactly it. Like at Cheltenham, you jump a fence, you turn left. You jump another fence, you turn left. If you're jumping to your right, you're giving away ground all the time. At Leopardstown, you have those 6 fences down the back straight that Paul Carberry used to always talk about how he loved lining up at the bottom of the back straight and jumping, seeing those fences in a line in front of him. Then you turn and you run straight up the home straight, and then you go down the side of the track. So it's not as big a disadvantage. And as Mark said, remember in Erguimin jumping to his right, and on soft ground, it wasn't a massive disadvantage because they were going around the outside. It does depend on the degree to which they go towards the outside. Like the ground is drying up all the time, so it's going to be really interesting to see what the ground is actually like on the days. But I suspect they might not go so far wide. The ground it probably won't be as soft as it was at Christmas, and it may be that they won't go that wide. And look, Gaelic Warrior, he does jump to his right. He jumped hurdles to his right. His 2 chases have been at right-handed tracks, and even on a right-handed track, you can see him going to his right. So it's a factor for sure. And yeah, factor file is another factor. Like he's very, very good. Mark covered it all there. He did so well. And when he was beaten by American Mike at Navan, that was at a time of the year at which the Willie Mullins horses were just kind of coming forward, weren't they? They were just kind of maybe needing their first run, which is often the way at that time of year. But he showed the last day at Leopardstown, that beginner's chase, how good he was. He beats Anahir Pointless. Minella Kakuner, who was beaten 40 lengths, came out and was impressive in winning his beginner's chase there last week. So they're all positives for factor file. And yeah, I can see him putting it up to Gaelic Warrior and then factor in the Gaelic Warrior kind of tendency to go to his right. I think factor file could be the one here.
Patrick Mullins is riding Grangeclare West, so I wonder where he'll go on when they jump to last, and Paul Townend is going to potentially go one way. Will Patrick go left or right? So we're going to have lots of fun here. Nicola, we don't have odds in this, but we're going to have a fascinating betting race. I don't envy your odds compilers here, but maybe we'll get you on the big one, the clash of Imperial Passé and State Man and Bob Ollinger in the Irish Champion Hurdle.
Yeah, as I said, listen, we'll probably slightly favour Gaelic Warrior going into this, but it's going to be really close, and I'm a factor file and say Grangeclare West will be around the 5-1 mark. But the traders are currently bashing out the prices right now, so we might get them before the end of the show. But yeah, we have a lot of short price favourites coming up as well, in the likes of Stateman, El Fabiolo as well. What do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, we don't have odds of the Stateman yet, but this, yeah, I mean, it's hard to see this form being reversed. As it was at the preview night I was at last night, somebody in the audience made the point: will they ride Imperial Passé a bit differently because he stays so far? But I'm not sure to make any odds myself.
Listen, Stateman, it just wins as far as we're concerned. Possibly the shortest price of the 2 days, around 1-4. He just keeps on winning. He's superior to Imperial Pass. He was at Christmas. I'd say Imperial Pass is going to be around 7-2 mark. I can't see him catching up. Bob Ollinger seems to be back to himself. Warrants respect. Now I haven't seen the deck, but I think it's going to be pretty straightforward, this race.
It was straightforward here, Mark. If you're Michael Buckley and Nicky Henderson, like, what are you doing? Come over, have a jolly in Leopardstown for the weekend, pick up over 100 grand, give us a bit of crack. You're going to Leopardstown after barely getting out of your out of bed one day for winning at 1-10. I don't know. Like, where is the proper campaigning of this horse? John Ox ran See the Stars in 6 Group 1s as a 3-year-old, ran in different ground, different trips, different countries, different everything. And Constitution Hill is being treated like, I don't know, like some sort of a prince or a princess that you just can't like. It does annoy me, actually.
Yeah, well, look at it. I said to someone recently, if you thought the darts had Luke Littler and you'd only get to see him 2 or 3 times a year, I think, the sport...
That's a hell of an analogy now.
It's... obviously they're different, maybe different athletes, but different sports. But to me, it is disappointing, and I think there is such a lack of depth to the 2 mile division. It's something I've written about in the Irish Field this weekend. It is a shame not to see him here. But in the same breath, I think this race is fascinating in its own right without him, because tactically,
how much more does he have in hand here, Stateman? If I ask you, does he have much more in hand than is the visual impression here?
Well, I think on this occasion he does, but the vibe seems to be that Imperial Pass has improved. Now, I don't think he'd improve enough to beat Stateman, but they do seem to think that he has improved. But I think if they replicate the same tactics again, how can the result be any different? I thought in a horse that stays 2-4, 2-5, it was a bit curious to sit back and, maybe try and out-quicken a horse who is consistently showing at 2 miles that he's the best around, with the exception of Constitution Hill. I'd like to see them try something a bit more forward. But then, if you do get over-aggressive, does that bring in Bob Ollinger into the race? from a point of view that he is better at 2.5. That's probably his best trip. But his ace card is still speed, So I'm not getting carried away with what I've seen from Bob Olinger here in terms of bare form. I know Marie's Rock has gone on in one since. I don't think it was the same Marie's Rock as we saw here. And I thought even pace of the race, it was just messy. I think it's his speed that wins it for him. You can even see him; he holds his head slightly awkwardly. I think this horse, Bob Olinger, still. Jury's still out slightly as to whether he is absolutely, in the same league as State Man. But I think if this did turn into an emphasis on speed, as opposed to, let's say, ripping the guts out of him with a real end-to-end gallop, it could look very interesting. 3 down, 2 down. State Man's never overly flashy, never really wins by huge margins. This guy is a flashy traveller. I'm just so glad that Bob Olinger is here to bring spice to it. If you'd said gun to head, State Man is still where I'd like to have my free bet from Ladbrokes, but I think Bob Olinger is going to make it spicy.
Okay, Don, talk to me. Bob Olinger, for a horse that's actually been knocked a little bit, he went 1 point, he won, 1 bumper he won, 4 chases won 3, 9 hurdle races won 5, and the last day at Cheltenham, he did kind of exercise some of the demons, I suppose.
Yeah, it was good to see that, Johnny. I think his about turn was in the Lismullen hurdle when he travelled really well for Rachel, came there looking like he was going to win it. Then Zana here challenged him and Rachel had to get after him. And that was a point in his career, I think, that was fairly defining. And he picked up, he went to the line strongly, he won well on heavy ground over 2.5 miles. And then at Cheltenham on New Year's Day, I thought it was a super performance. He showed that pace that we know he has, that he used when he won at Ballymore. He quickened away from Marie's Rock. He did everything that he could have done there. He's dropping back in trip to 2 miles. I suspect the entry hurdle that's been mentioned as a kind of goal, so they're maybe taking the entry hurdle as a goal and working back from there. But it's great that he's in here. And look, tactics are going to be fascinating here. So what are they going to do? Like, they can't do what they did at Punchestown when they just allowed Paul Townend to solo up front and State Man. He's such a straightforward horse. He can do it from anywhere. He can sit in front. He can sit behind and quicken. And it would be really interesting if Imperial Pass does go on. I'd say Rachel will sit in behind Bob Olinger, and then Echoes and Rain, she'll sit in behind as well. So it's going to need that. Maybe a few Sideris could go on, but hopefully we're going to get a pace here, whether it's Sideris going on or Imperial Pass trying something different. But I thought it was telling as well after the Matheson hurdle when Gary said to Willie in his post-race interview, "Can you see Imperial Pass beating State Man kind of ever?" And Willie just kind of went, "No." It was surreal. Like, he thought about it, he went, "No, not really." So yeah, it's hard to see it, isn't it?
This is going to be an absolute belter. Just a couple of comments coming in as well. We had one in reference to Gareth Strong, who was asking about Gaelic Warrior. In fact, I think the lads have answered that quite well. I find that a hard race to call, and Trevor Clark is complimenting Mark on his look, so all the comments are coming in, and keep those comments coming in, be they as wide the mark or otherwise as that one. So let's move on to El Fabiolo, who doesn't take on John Bond here, but to be fair to Nicky Henderson, I think John Bond's been fairly aggressively enough campaigned, blotted his copybook a bit at Cheltenham at the weekend. Mark, that is a race to look forward to, but I guess if you have any doubts about who's in the ascendancy between that pair, maybe the last weekend would have put you back into the El Fabiolo territory, and that just doesn't do anything wrong, does he?
Yeah, no, listen, he's inclined to throw in the odd wobbler and
the odd
a dumping error at times, but he's just so talented. And in terms of one of the most impressive physical horses you'll see this weekend at Leopardstown, I just love getting the chance to see him in the flesh. I think he's an absolute beast. And this day, even Paul Townend, we see the perils that can come when you pick wrong. He went and appreciated here, if memory serves me right, back in third, and Dara Jacob got to partner El Fabiolo on this occasion. It just goes to show you that, if they can improve at different rates. This fella was very much in the ascendancy last season, the Irish Arkle, and look, I think he's the best around. I can't see a reason why he would be upset. I suppose if you were to flag something, it would be that occasionally you would find maybe personally anyway, when you see grade ones delayed, and I've spoken to other people about this as well at times, or when you have a target, let's say, that moves, haven't tried to peak for it, maybe you don't get the very peak performance occasionally. We've seen last week with John Bond, that wasn't the best of John Bond a week afterwards. We've seen with the Lawlers and Ace, reading Tommy wrong, upset Sid Atlantique. It can happen from time to time, but I think this guy has so much in hand of them. And if there is a way into the race, I actually think Gentleman to Me might get closer to Dino Blue than some people are reckoning. I think for a first run of the season for Gentleman to Me, he's never at his best early in the year. He's better in the spring. I thought it was a perfectly satisfactory run. He caused an upset in this race last year. To be interested to see the betting without. If there was any juice in his price, I'd be intrigued to have a look at him, because Captain Guinness blotted his copybook Christmas, not for 12 in grade ones. He just doesn't quite do it for me. He has lots of ability to see in the champion chase last year, but I think he might help your gentleman to me price in the betting without market.
Briefly, Don.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Alfabiolo again. I wouldn't disregard Captain Guinness. He was clinically abnormal after the last day. He had is it a defibrillating heart he has, which he had a temporary the season before last. So, I think the 2 mile 1 furlong trip just stretches him maybe beyond his limit at Leopardstown. So that would be more a concern. But I think he's probably going to be underrated on the back of a disappointing run the last day. But you can just put a line through that run. Agree with gentlemen the mark on him. He that was his first run of the season. The ground will probably be better. That'll probably suit him better. He was really good in winning this race last season, albeit he didn't have El Fabiola to take on. And Dina Blue came into the race the last day with race fitness on her side. So I can see gentlemen the May running well at a track that he likes, and the more the ground dries out, the more it'll help him.
Nicola, this is probably one of these races where if you do get the favourite beat, it's a massive help in terms of Aka's being beaten and all of that for the firm.
Yeah, we'll really be hoping that one of the shorties can do us a favour and get turned over. But I'm pretty sure in this race, I'll probably be handing the trophy over to El Fabiolo's connections. One of the short ones again, 2 to 7. And obviously, Ascot's loss is our gain here. He deserves to be this short. Obviously, as I said, we're going to be hoping for upsets. I don't see that here, but Dino Blue deserves respect. She's an improving mare, and it'll be interesting to see on the day if we get, people will want to oppose these short price favourites as well. So it'll be interesting to see where the money goes.
Yeah, we are running out of time. And as Nicola says, and Don talked about Captain Guinness here, wasn't right the last year on very, very testing ground. We have good horses taking on El Fabiola here. You shouldn't underestimate. He has a decent challenge on, even without John Bond. We're running out of time, as I said, so we don't really have time to go through a fascinating novice hurdle in which, just to again update, Patrick Mullins gets the ride on Daddy Longlegs, who I think the last day basically couldn't walk on that ground. But Ballyburn, very promising, is going to be ridden by Paul Townend. And just keep an eye out for the likes of Facile Mode as well, who's not the worst horse in the world. Absurd in the race, Willie Mullins, really fascinating. We're going to get your best. We're going to get the best bet from the panel. And also, Mark, we'll start with you if you have any other horse you want to mention, because we have a fascinating mare's bumper into the bargain.
Yeah, Johnny, I give a flag to one in the Timeless Sash Windows Handicap Hurdle race that's changed titles any amount of times over the last few years. But One Last Tango, I thought he won well at Christmas. He got £9 for it. Owen Griffin, JP McManus. I see the decks here. Mark Walsh is booked to ride. That's no negative. I thought that on the ground at Christmas, when it turned very testing, I was worried. But the fact he won suggested he is a horse on the up in spite of the ground. He's going to get much more favourable conditions here. He's proven around the track and trip. If you can get a double figure price, which I've seen knocking about One Last Tango, I think that's going to be fair value. But my nap, I'm going to have a go and say a fact to file, Johnny, because I just think he is one of the unexposed horses we see this weekend. He's the one that could have the most upside. If you said to me of that Ladbrokes Chase, which of them could be a Gold Cup horse in a year or two's time, I think he's the more likely of them than Gaelic Warrior. But if there's anything to catch him out, it'll just be a little bit of sharpness maybe from Gaelic Warrior on the day. But going this way around, I'll take my chance of fact to file as the nap.
Donn McClean.
Yeah, sure. We can be here all day talking about what we're looking forward to, Johnny, for the weekend. A dream to share. Looking forward to seeing him again in the bumper on the Saturday. The 2 mile handicap chase, the 2 mile 1 furlong handicap chase on the Saturday. That's a fascinating race. It's really competitive. I thought Madara, a rare British runner coming over from Sophie Leach, I thought he's an improving horse. I thought he won well at the December meeting at Cheltenham last time. And bet of Sunday is Factifile for all the reasons outlined earlier on.
110 nap also from Don. Factifile. Nicola, your nap on Sunday.
Yeah, I think we're all singing off the same hymn sheet here, lads. Best horse that's not odds on as far as I'm concerned is Factifile.
Wow. So we have 3 naps for Factifile, even though this horse is absolutely not going to be sent off favourite, I think, here.
No, so I think Factifile is going to represent the value of the day, really. And it'll be really interesting to see actually how the betting goes on the day between the two. It'll depend on what sort of day one as well. Of course, Willie and Paul have on the first day, that will impact Gaelic Warriors odds as well, I'm sure. But Factifile was just excellent here at Christmas, and he's going to be really tough to beat.
Just to reiterate, then, Ladbrokes offer for the weekend, Nicola.
Yeah, we're going to be running a matched free bet up to €5.
Beautiful. So check that out. My nap on the second day of the festival is Risk Bell. That is the race that honours Paddy Mullins and Willie Mullins, Paddy's son, and will have prepped this horse for this race. Fell in the race last year, and albeit she's higher now, but I think she's very, very solid. That was on the wire thanks to Donn, Nicola, and Mark Boylan. It's a hell of a weekend. I said at the start the show was 2-0. Of course, it is 2-1 between Fast or Slow and Gallopin Des Champs. That might change at the weekend, regardless of what happens. We're going to have racing to absolutely savour over 2 days.
On the Wire, in association with Ladbrokes.